balls deep in this dude one time. Oh my God, we're live. Shit.
Fucking hell, man. I'm telling you, Ray, I feel you, man. I'm sweating like a whore in church right now. It is so fucking hot.
Yeah, I'm outside, but now I'm getting mosquito bites, so I'm gonna have to go back in.
Oh, yeah,
You got bug spray?
I don't actually. I thought I did. I checked. I don't.
Oh crap!
I just found out that my new car's AC pumps hot air, so I was like, oh boy, and it's like 90 here, so that was a hell of a test drive.
It probably needs just Freon, most likely. That's probably going to be another $400.
Yeah, they knocked me for $730 today, but then I couldn't do the emissions because I changed the battery, so it wiped the computer. So I have to drive it 100 miles, then bring it back in. And they know the spark plugs need replaced, and there was a misfire on the first cylinder. So we're looking at least another $300. And then they couldn't get the oil filter out. It was jammed, so they have to pull that all apart. So I'm fucked. But it runs. So
it looks nice. I mean, either way you look at it, you're getting a decent-looking car for way less than you would have to buy it for.
Exactly. And it's Jeff Gonzalez's, so it's being driven in his honor. I spent like 3 weeks scrubbing the fuck out of it. I haven't even done the whole outside yet. I'm gonna buff it and shit. Because my mom used to work she used to do car detailing for a living, so she was showing me how to do all this stuff. So it'll look even nicer. And I got fancy bumper stickers to put on to cover the spots where the paint's missing.
You're kind of making me feel nostalgic, like when I got my first car.
Well, you know, I think we were all 31 once, right?
I got a hand-me-down Chevy Corsica in my first car from my grandma.
What year was it?
Early 90s, probably.
My first car was a 1984 Plymouth Turismo.
Plymouth Turismo. Whoa.
Mine's 2001. But I found out it's great because everyone's like, no, that's not that old. I'm like, yeah, they stopped making Saturn, so all the parts are impossible to find. So hence the $700 repair bill today.
Oh, yeah, that's true. For some reason, I thought it was a Subaru when I looked at it, but yeah,
it looks Saturn. Like the Saturn. It's bugging me out, though, because it's a hatchback, and it's so fucking long. Like, I'm used to driving my mom's car. It's real wide, but it's not long, so it's like I look in the rearview mirror, and it's like fish-eyeing because there's like 7 feet behind me that I'm not used to seeing, and then I can see outside. I'm like, the fuck? It's real weird. It feels like I'm driving a fucking tank.
So,
I don't run over any pedestrians.
So, Brian, did you make sure you got Lombardo blasting nips in the new intro video?
Oh, yeah, I forgot I did do nips, didn't I?
I don't think he's listening to me.
Are we
Brian.
Yes.
You guys can hear me. Why can't Brian? Horror Jew. Muted.
Oh my god, I'm gonna be such an ass. How do we spell Nick's last name? Right now, I can't.
H-U-N-T.
H-U-N-T, it's Hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got one more trailer playing. It's a Terrifier trailer. God, I love my Friday nights.
And you got me on May the 4th, you know?
Dun, 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 dun.
Who's looking forward to Solo and who's not?
I am.
Looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not a Star Wars fan. I have to admit. No, too much body swapping. Or wait.
Yeah. Wait.
Hey, Nick, is your video not on?
My video's on.
I'm not seeing you.
You're not seeing me?
Now, is that just me, guys, or is everyone else?
I'm not seeing him either.
I don't know.
Can you see me now?
You come in and out, Nick. Like
I'm coming in and out?
Yeah, you come in and out on your phone. If you're looking at something else on your phone, it's going to take you away. And we won't see your face.
See, I did not know that. This is me learning live video. Okay. Well, my apologies. I will try and keep that to a minimum once we're live.
That's okay
Once
though.
I'll
If you need to check something, or if you want to tag somebody, it's not a big deal that you're on camera the whole time.
Right.
All right, so now we have the new intro playing. Every time I play this intro, it freezes for some reason. Yep.
Still seeing Terrifier.
Man, Terrifier is a good fucking movie.
Oh man, it is.
Is it? I didn't see it yet.
Guaranteed they're going to greenlight a sequel within the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I really think so, that it's gonna get picked up.
I like the design of the killer. He looks cool.
Yeah. I have to be honest. I didn't really like the was it the Tales from Halloween ones that he was in featured.
All right, guys, getting set.
All right.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of THS Lives here tonight. My name is Brian Enright. You can follow me here on Facebook at Brian Enright, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Horror Jew. All right, so let's get this started up in here. Up next, we have Jared Letourneau. Jared, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. And you boils and ghouls at home, you guys can follow me on Facebook at Jared Letourneau, or on the Twitterverse at zombie_survivor. Excited for tonight, guys. Back to you, Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Jared. Up next, we have the one and only Mike Lombardo. Mike, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. It's great to be here. You guys can find me at realsplatter.com, as Jared is showing off on his torso. It's realsplatter with 2 E's. And you guys find me at facebook.com/realsplatter, twitter.com/realsplatter, though I'm never on there, and behind the McDonald's dumpster Monday through Friday. Back to you, Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Mike Lombardo. Up next, we have our president and fearless leader, Mr. Ray Merrick. Ray, good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Happy May the 4th. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Ray. And of course, here we go. We have our special guest of the evening, director of Safe Place and the upcoming Jason Goes to Hell documentary, The Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees, Mr. Nicholas Hunt. Nick, good evening.
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh yeah, anytime. Thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it here at the Horror Syndicate. We love talking horror movies, and we love what you have to offer. So thanks for joining us. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have you have 2 movies coming up. One is in post-production, I believe, and the other one is about to begin. So you have this movie. Before we go into the what everyone's waiting for, the Friday the 13th documentary, let's talk a little about Safe Place. How did that get started?
Oh well, Safe Place was a brainchild that began about 3 years ago, but was incepted about 10 years ago, but really sat on the shelf for a long time. It started out as a very basic slasher movie, and over time I wanted to evolve it into something bigger and greater. And so I got to thinking, we as an audience and as fans have evolved in the way that we like to see horror and the things that we like to see on screen. And so I figured, well, what if I make sort of a new slasher? And sort of take the classic slasher tropes and not necessarily throw them away, but improve upon them. One of the things that I see all the time is that you have the same characters in slasher films that were in the slasher films of the 80s and the 70s and the 90s. And really, I think that we can improve upon that. I think that we can give people better characters. I think that we can give people stronger characters, characters that are fighters, and characters that maybe aren't necessarily displaceable, that you would be surprised or even saddened to lose. Stronger characters, characters that are fighters, and others that maybe aren't necessarily.
Oh boy, we got ourselves an echo. It's okay, people. We're live.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
This kind of stuff happens all the time. So, but yeah, it looks like we got a lot of people watching us. To everyone out there, thanks for joining us. We have Matt Groom saying you have a booger in your nose. Thank you, Matt Groom. And we have a hand high five from Joe Ridgely from Technical Defects. So, Safe Place, you have you have this slasher movie, and the characters that you're portraying are just your average, everyday people. There's nothing really too crazy about them. Right. And then they portray realistic identities to compare to normal people throughout that you would see on the street. So what were some of your inspirations that got you started with writing Safe Place?
Well, one of the things that always intrigues me is sort of people's reactions to their environment and people's reactions to colossal events, world events or citywide events or statewide events. Just the way that people react to dangerous and chaotic situations. And, I got the idea, what if somebody's safe place wasn't safe at all? And, what if it was even more of a tumultuous situation than the outside? And so I wanted to create this story that essentially had these people that were put in this turmoil and they had to fight to survive. And then you have, the antagonist that believes that they're better to be spared from the world outside. And it deals with some really interesting concepts with sociological relationships. And, there's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of meat and a lot of potatoes that are into my characters. I wanted to make them relatable. I wanted to make them identifiable. I wanted to make them, your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your coworkers, because you don't generally see that. All we see are the same. You see the dumb jock. You see the overly flamboyant homosexual. You see the minority that's using cliches. You have the
these are all playable characters.
Yeah, and you have the athlete. You have these experienced athletes that no longer know how to do anything, know how to run, know how to and we're tired of seeing the cars that won't start, the people that don't know how to run, the cell phones that don't work. I wanted to improve upon those things.
Running upstairs instead of going outside.
Yeah. The living purpose, the working purpose with Safe Places is you're going to go into it thinking and on the outside that it's 99% of the other slasher films that you've seen. But we're going to throw grenades and curveballs into the mix that are really going to throw the viewer and are really going to surprise you in ways that you haven't been before, hopefully, and try and achieve something greater out of the audience.
So we were talking a little bit before the podcast started. Ashley Marie Nunez.
Yes,
we really loved her in All Through the House.
Oh man, she's absolutely fantastic. When I saw her in All Through the House and I saw the attention that she was getting, I knew that she had to be utilized in a way that was pleasing of her and the strong presence that she invoked. And, the fact that she's a mother and in real life, I wanted to use all of these things in the lead role of Lori in Safe Place and really create the yin to the yang of Chris Craven.
And Chris
the antagonist
is the antagonist, right?
Yes, he is the antagonist.
So you guys are in post-production for this film. How much longer do you think you guys got?
Well, that's actually a common misconception. Even though we have been offered worldwide distribution, and even though we are fully funded, we are not in production yet. We are yet to go into production, slated here in a couple months, actually.
Oh, so you haven't even started production. Okay, my bad.
No, it's a common misconception. People believe that with some of the things that we've done and the amount of time that I've spent in the pre-production process promoting my brand of Safe Place. A lot of people assume that the film's already done or is filming or something along those lines. So it's not the first time.
It could have fooled me. It looks, just seeing Ashley Nunes in the in that teaser that we played for the beginning of the show, which you shared before we began the Horror Syndicate Lives. I thought it was in post production, so I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Anybody on?
It's okay. Believe it or not, that people have called it the wrong title several times, so you are not the only person to make a hiccup on it. Okay.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Jared, and everyone here. We watched all through the house when we first watched Ashley Nunes, and she's definitely making a name for herself, especially since she's in your movie, it's just we hope to see more from her. Is there anyone else in the cast that you were just flabbergasted by?
Oh, wow. There's everybody. You have Lara Jean Mamere from, to Jennifer, who is just one of the most honest and genuine and amazing theatrically trained actresses I have ever met in my entire life. The role that she is playing in the movie is that of a detective. And, I really wanted to bring a strong female presence, and she just knocks it out of the park. Also on the female side, we have Alice Winkler, who found her popularity in Plank Face and Space Babes from Outer Space. And then she's also in James Bickert's upcoming Amazon Hotbox. That's on the crowdfunding process right now. And then we have Genevieve Rossi, who's in the upcoming Death House with Kane Hodder and Sid Haig. We have Gabrielle Ann Henry, who was the lead in Blood Widow. On the male side of things, we have Gregory Blair, who's playing Chris Craven. Of course, he has been involved with a couple of the different cast members from Safe Place because he directed and wrote Bill Oberst in Deadly Revisions that won a bunch of awards a couple years back. And then, of course, Bill Oberst himself, just honored to have him, a part of this. When I was told that, an Emmy winner wanted to be a part of the project with me, it tickled me a little bit. And he's such a diverse character actor. And, whether he's playing Papa Corn or, he's in Rob Zombie's upcoming 3 from Hell, I have no doubt that he's going to knock his role in Safe Place out of the park.
That's gotta be great for you. I mean, having Bill Oberst, be in Safe Place, and then all of a sudden, he gets announced in Rob Zombie's next biggest movie. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that don't like Rob Zombie movies out there, and me myself, I'm like a hit or miss with Rob Zombies. Like, it's
Same
weird.
Here.
It's I mean, like, people hated the Lords of Salem, and I thought it was his best movie, and I know I'm a minority here.
Yeah, you might be. Yeah.
You might be.
It just, I don't know. I love witches and crazy shit, and it was like different than the rest of his movies. It wasn't like Hillbilly Family Slaughter. It was like, different. But yeah,
and that's why I think he is playing it safe with doing Free from Hell, because it's an extension of the Firefly clan, and I mean it's something that it already has an attached fan base to it. So I mean, I have faith, because I know I know personally like 70% of the cast that's in it, between Sean Whalen and Jeff Daniel Phillips. I mean, there's so many unbelievable people that are in it. And I mean, yeah, I predict Three from Hell is going to be a knockout of the park.
Awesome. Well, so you have Safe Place, and then you introduced this beautiful vision.
Yes.
That Mike Lombardo is really excited for and wants to know personally if the whole reason behind this documentary was to explain the shaving scene in Jason Goes to Hell. That's what he wants to know.
Need closure.
Closure. Well, I will say that the shaving scene will be addressed. It will be addressed one way or another. I will make sure of it, Mr. Lombardo.
We should have a shaving party, Mike, when we watch the documentary come out. I will let you shave me as long as you get to dress up as Jason Voorhees.
The whole Friday the 13th, like Gillette crossover, like commercial campaign would have been great.
Hey, you know, we're always open for product placement, so you know, I mean, it's a possibility.
More slashers choose Barbasol.
Yeah. Oh man,
That ain't the closest shave you'll ever get, you know.
Yeah. I've never cut myself more than when I've used Barbasol. Like I'd rather use like Johnson's baby lotion than use Barbasol.
See, I don't use anything. I'm a champ, man. I go nothing. Water. That's it.
I used to do that, but then I shredded my face one day, so I stopped doing that. Johnson's baby lotion was used quite extensively when I was a teenager watching Jason Goes to Hell.
Uh-oh.
I guess we'll go more into the tent scene too, because if there is two scenes in Jason Goes to Hell that Mike Lombardo gets hot for every time, it's the shaving scene and it's the tent scene.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, I mean, it's. I mean, the film in itself. I mean, the tent scene is probably one of the most violent movies, or one of the most violent scenes in the entire franchise. I would be sure to say. You know,
Goes to Hell has like a fucking highlight reel of the most revolting violence in the entire franchise. Every kill is so much more violent than any other Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, like, you have the one kid, who got their head turned around in the movie. What's her name? I can't remember.
Her head turned around. Oh, you're thinking of Rushy Swimmer.
Yes.
Who played Joey B, the diner owner.
Yes, and everyone in that diner dies, and it's incredible. I know that there's people out there that absolutely hate Jason Goes to Hell, and Mike brought up a good point of why people shouldn't hate Jason Goes to Hell, because the continuity in the previous movies before never really followed each other, and Jason Goes to Hell was trying something new. Is that something that turned you on to the project when you began this, Nick?
Oh yeah. One of the first things I told Adam Marcus in a flattery voice was that it took balls to make Jason Goes to Hell. It's the same with Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Absolutely.
It really took balls to make them. To do something that was original and was going outside of the box, which, Adam Marcus still defends that Jason Goes to Hell fits continuity. You just have to sort of hear it from the horse's mouth. And one of the good things that I tell people is that I welcome the people that hate the film. Whenever somebody posts something negative, I tell them, well, the good thing about the documentary is that you can hate the film and love the documentary. It's going to address all of the bad, the bad juju. It's going to address all of the why did this happen? You know, why was the Voorhees name spelt like this on the mailbox? Why was this the way it was? Why was that the way it was? We really hope to sort of
What's
clear
up
up
with
the
that shaving
misconception.
scene?
Yeah. You know,
The question that I would like to pose for it, because a lot of people say that they complain that in Jason Goes to Hell, there's a Voorhees sister, which was never mentioned previously. So that's a continuity error. But what I would like to know is how someone who drowned when they were 7 turned like 40 and grew like 9 feet and became an undead monster, because that's a really big continuity problem I was wondering about.
yeah.
You know, I feel although the logistics that, you know, have Jason having a sister, he went a little too far with that continuity. Everything else,
No, I mean, it's, you know, it's the great thing about this movie is as soon as I announced it, it went live in 15 countries over the course of 72 hours. It got people talking, and it still gets people talking. 25 years later, this movie is still in the mouths of people. Jason, you'd be remiss to go anywhere in the universe and mention the name Jason Voorhees and nobody know who it is.
Well,
At least,
possibly, depending on if he got out of that lake or not.
yeah, you know, and it's
If you go by the book continuity, the Jason X novels, he absolutely wrought havoc there as well. So there's
of course. You know, and it's just, you know, I want to tell people, you know, what disadvantages did Adam Marcus have? He was a first-time filmmaker given the task of directing the 9th installment of the biggest horror franchise in the world.
God, he had to have been pretty young too, huh?
I believe he was 20 or 21 when he directed it. And the fact I mean, the story alone of some of the things that he went through, some of the things that he was not allowed to put his direct input into as the director of the movie, would just appall some of the audience and some of the consumers out there, and would maybe allow you to give the movie a second watch and to appreciate it for some of the things that you maybe didn't see before. You know, it's one of those things that, like I said, I welcome people that love it. I welcome people that hate it equally.
Well, for Adam Marcus being 20 or 21 and a first-time filmmaker, that movie is goddamn beautifully made. It really is.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd go out and say that's probably one of the, from a technical standpoint, probably one of the best in the entire series, as far as the actual filmmaking end of it. Because
I mean, when you break it down to I mean, look, it was the first movie that ever employed orchestral work with the score, as opposed to a soundboard that was used by Harry Manfredini previously.
Right.
It was the first movie, or it was the second movie that didn't have Jason predominantly in it for 90% of the film. You know, it utilized some of the biggest gore. It also has some of the best and most theatrically and classically trained actors, and one of the most highest honored casts in the franchise history.
One major thing, it was the only one in the series to have a fucking plot too.
Yeah.
And John D. LeMay, he's in it, and he went off to star in the TV series Friday the 13th.
Yeah. And he's just such a nice guy. He's one of those people that is really humbled at his career, and he's just such an amazing soul.
So I'm gonna go total confessional here.
Go ahead, Jared.
When I was like 13 or 14.
Oh, we lost Jared.
Anybody else do that?
Did you just wait? We lost you, Jared.
Uh-oh.
Which I think, if you're about to say what I think you're about to say, I think it might have been.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Say it again, Jared.
But when I was 13 or 14, I actually made a couple of Jason Voorhees hamburger patties and cooked for my family.
Oh, hell yeah.
Did anybody else ever do that?
I always wanted to, but I could never. I never had access to the raw meat. We only had frozen patties.
One of the things that we actually hope to do, that's a goal that's top on my priority list, is being able to go to some of the locations that were utilized in the original film. And not a lot of people know is that the diner is now an automotive shop over in Southern California. But it is still standing, and it is still the exact same structure. Nothing has been taken away or added on. And so there's a lot of really cool places over in Southern California where this is filmed that would be interesting to explore.
Does Rusty Schwimmer still work there, even though it's an automotive place?
She might. You know,
my biggest issue, yes, I know. Jason Goes to Hell. Who has issues with that movie, right? My biggest issue with Jason Goes to Hell, and this is something that everyone did in the 90s. They added grunts to the villains. Like in the beginning, when Jason is going after the FBI agent and he's getting shot, and he makes those grunts. That was like the cheesiest part, and I feel like that was probably a decision from the producers to add those grunts. But I don't know.
Right.
When you do this documentary, can you find out for me, because it drives me crazy.
Kane Hodder
thinking about those grunts. It seemed very
you know,
and it was just it was very unwelcoming, and I will admit it made me turn off the movie the first time I watched it. But once I got past those grunts, Jason making sounds of getting hit with bullets, which is weird because he gets shot how many times in the fucking series, and he never makes a sound. Like, what was one movie he made a sound? Maybe the second movie he made a sound when he was like more human than human. But
that was before he became undead after he died.
Yes,
first time. Like little continuity plaster.
I mean,
yeah. See, I think even when it came to like the New Blood on Part 7, when the mask was tightened and forced off of his head and broken from Lar Park Lincoln, I think even then when he was grinding his teeth and sort of like mumbling, nothing came out of his mouth.
Yeah. I think other than Jason Goes to Hell, Part 7 is the best look Jason has ever looked, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I love Part 7 because of the body more than the face, because of the exposed spine and rib bones.
Yeah.
The hands, the skeletal hands, they really worked well. John Carl Buechler did an amazing job on that, and he deserves a lot more credit for Part 7 than he does.
No, I agree. I think that the Jason was the only good thing that movie had going for it.
Oh, yeah.
What are you talking about? Had Terry Kaiser in it.
Well, actually, I don't know. Lar Park Lincoln she was actually really good. Not many people remember her from, I think it was House 2. Or, of all things.
Oh, she was great.
One of my childhood favorites.
I'm more of a House 4 kind of guy myself, but
yeah. I mean, I think she was a good match for Jason.
I just saw Reynolds.
Jason
from Jason Takes Manhattan. He was like skinny and bald. Did you just see him going in there?
I did. Ray's house could fill with toxic waste? Is that what you're saying?
See, okay. People want to talk about continuity issues, but nobody says anything about, okay, full adult messed up Jason goes into a sewer, gets wrecked with toxic waste, and turns into a little boy. That has
my movie alone, damn you.
Wait,
you know. Okay, Jason Takes Manhattan had Kelly Hugh. That's the only good thing about it. Okay.
I live near to Isle Island, the nuclear power plant, and that's actually one of the biggest problems they have is the employees turning into children because of the waste.
I know.
We got to pay them for child labor
See, like
laws. Have the
my
parents decide
two
to work
favorite
release.
scenes in Jason Goes to Hell are the diner scene and the sheriff's department scene.
Oh, yeah.
The reason being is I love any scene where Jason is entering a building with lots of people, and it gives an opportunity, sort of like with Freddy versus Jason in the corn rave scene.
Oh yeah.
And one of the biggest things, which this is a good trivia for people that don't know, is in Jason Takes Manhattan, there you go, in the scene where he goes into the diner, the cook that he throws up against the mirror that's in the kitchen is Ken Kurzinger, who plays Jason in Freddy vs. Jason.
I actually knew that. That's a little factoid nobody really knows.
Well, see, I had a fan theory that because he was killed by Jason, he infected him and he became the new.
Yeah. See, what really bugs me is I don't know if anybody ever got the chance to read the Friday the 13th Part 13 script that was done by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift. That was supposed to go into production in Georgia a few months back.
Until Rings fucked everything up.
Yeah, and it was a really good script. It was basically a combination of parts 1 to 4 that also introduced Elias Voorhees. Yeah. And so I mean there were a lot of interesting things to it. It was brutal, and I think it would have been a worthy sequel. It's a shame what's going on right now with all the arguments. And me, I'm on the double-edged spectrum because I know both Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. So it's an equally odd situation.
Yeah, it's a bad situation all around. And we've discussed this before on our podcast because of the huge success of the Friday the 13th video game. It would have been a perfect time to get that movie finished and put out when that happened.
Yeah. It's rough to say, but it's very like with the information that I have through the development of this documentary, it's looking very grim about us getting any sort of Friday the 13th or Jason movie within the foreseeable future. It's one of those things that unfortunately, however it ends up, we're either going to be able to get a Friday the 13th movie that won't be able to have Jason in it, or we're going to be able to have a Jason movie that can't acknowledge any of its previous predecessors. So it's going to be very interesting to see over the next 2 or 3 years how it all plays out. Personally, I say put the rights on the market. I say dissolve whatever agreement they have and put the rights on the market. Mm-hmm. Leave it open for places like, I don't know, Blumhouse or the resurrected Orion Pictures, perhaps, or even Paramount to grab it back up.
I would like to see, I don't know if you were able to see Never Hike Alone, the Vincent DeSanti movie.
Yeah, Vincente is actually a really good friend of mine.
I was going to say, give the rights to him because he could make a better movie than all of these people.
Yeah. He believe it or not, he's actually been helping us out a little bit behind the scenes with the documentary.
Excellent.
Cool. Nice.
So that's something that not a lot of people know. But there's so many different people that are involved all over the world with this documentary. We have a gentleman that's pure purpose is to get a hold of and talk to all the collectors from all over the world that happen to have screen used stuff that you guys are going to see in the documentary. And I'm talking, one of the things that we have, I was given a substantial amount of never before seen pre-production stills, raw production stills, promotional photography, and I have some never before seen video that nobody has ever seen, that has never been finished. That's all work print stuff, and it's going to be really interesting to let you guys see some of that stuff.
Very cool. You're going to be able to tackle the original ending sequence?
Maybe.
That they had, because when I met, I think it was John LeMay at a Fangoria Weekend of Horrors, they played the work print of that sequence without sound, and he did all the sound effects live on stage.
Right.
Pretty fucking wonderful.
Now, the ending that was scrapped, I've seen what Mike has just talked about, but I would like to see a remastered version of that ending.
Right.
Nick, you've seen that ending. Which ending do you prefer?
I like the ending that was released, just because, I think that the demon, the large version of the demon that people have only seen stills of, is really almost left to the imagination. Believe it or not, I had played an April Fool's joke on people a little while back. And it was that I had announced that I was going to do a direct sequel to Jason Goes to Hell. And it was going to stay in canon with Jason Goes to Hell, and that New Line was on board and all this stuff. And it really got people. People believed me. People were eating it up. It went nuts. And although it's something that I would never do, it's something that intrigues people, and I think, if the demon would ever, come into fruition, I'd like to see it in a sequel.
Have you, I'll pull this down here. Are you familiar with these? Friday the 13th novels that Black Flame did?
Yes. I remember the really early young adult novels. I think one was called just Summer Camp or something.
Yeah, well, these are the actual, Friday the 13th. These are more recent than those. I know what you're talking about, but there's one, Hell Lake, would have made a beautiful sequel to Jason Goes to Hell, where Jason actually escapes hell with a cadre of serial killers, and they kind of go through the different levels of hell and then escape through a portal in Crystal Lake and then wreak havoc, and it's really fucking cool. I think that would make a great sequel to the movie. So maybe.
See, I always thought of doing something, because I was asked one time if I was ever able to do a Friday the 13th sequel or any sort of entry or spin-off, or, what would I do? And I said that I would do something that basically took place directly after Jason Lives, as opposed and sort of throughout part 7 and part 8, and more dealt with that sort of ghostly aspect of it, and I had some really cool ideas going through my head, but it's just sort of, it's a pipe dream,
Almost like he's still buried, he's still underwater, chained to the bottom of the lake, and then he comes out in a different form, so to speak.
Yeah, well, not necessarily in a different form, but I like the idea of doing. It sort of ended up. It was all the idea that I had was almost The Thing meets Friday the 13th. It would have taken place in the winter, like there was a rumored sequel of at one point, and it basically saw Jason unearthed from the ice, similar to Jason X, but it was much more of a straightforward Friday the 13th, because I'm one of those people, as much as I love Jason Goes to Hell as a standalone, and as part of the franchise, much like how John Carpenter originally intended Halloween to have different plots throughout its sequels. It's one of those things that I always thought it could have benefited from different standalone stories, or something that was just maybe a one-off.
I see.
See, I would love to see if you picked it up after Jason Lives. So hear me out. Crystal Lake, or Forest Green rather, gets bought by a land developer, and they open a giant water park. And unbeknownst to them, something is lurking underneath the surface of the water. And Spring Break, of course, opens, and there's all these people. It'd be a lot like Piranha 3D.
Yeah.
But with Friday the 13th, I think that would be pretty wonderful.
Could we get David Koechner?
Anything's possible.
Yeah. It would only work if him or Hasselhoff was there,
Yeah.
Grasping for a Big Mac as Jason cuts his arm off with a machete.
Yeah. That would be pretty wonderful.
But I mean, there's been a couple because there's been a couple times to where I've sat and I've been like, well, I would love to. There's so many different franchises that I would love to contribute something to, if ever given the chance. At one point I had written before there was a Scream 4. I had written a Scream 4 that I actually rather liked. That saw it was basically almost like a Psycho scenario in a way, to where it saw Gale and Dewey killed off in like the first 5 minutes of it, and it turned out that Sydney was the killer. That she was just so fed up from all the publicity and all the attention over the years that she just went nuts. And I thought that would be a really fitting conclusion to it. I wrote a Wishmaster sequel because I always think that's a really underrated franchise that could have really benefited from a little bit more dedication in the writing department.
I really loved the first two of those.
Oh yeah.
The second one's okay. The first one is absolutely fucking fantastic.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Really underrated.
And then
top three runaway skeletons I've seen in my life.
Yeah.
That movie, definitely.
And then most recently, I actually went through the process, and this is something that not many people know, but I had actually gone through the process of trying to option the rights for I Know What You Did Last Summer, because I had contacted Lois Duncan's family, who wrote the original novel. Because if anybody knows the novel versus the movie, they know that it's a complete 360. The novel and the movie have essentially nothing to do with one another. There's no man in a rain slicker. It's not even an adult that's killed. It's a child. And I actually had it conceived as almost like a New England ghost tale. That was very dark and spooky, and still had its horror elements, but was more dealing in suspense. My I Know What You Did Last Summer didn't have anybody with a hook for a hand and a rain slicker. It was something that was completely original and different, and I wanted to throw away the trope of having Disney actors. And I wanted to have actually good, classically trained actors on the screen. And I just ran into issues with the rights. The Duncan family, because Lois Duncan ended up passing away a couple years ago. But her husband and her family were really, really keen on the idea, because I was making it very female-centered. And I was making it very, very female perspectived, and they really liked that idea and how I was pitching it, and it didn't work out. And maybe in the future, because I know that they were talking about doing a reboot with Mike Flanagan, and that was abandoned, which is why I decided that I was going to try and do it. And it's one of those things that rights, man, the rights. It always gets you.
When you're talking about the book, do you mean this book? Or is this...
Well, actually, no, not that, because that's I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
No, but I mean, it does contain 8 color photographs. So,
ooh.
Color photographs.
Are they all with Mekhi Phifer?
I don't know. I actually never finished reading it. No, it's a lot of it is what's her face? Not the brat. Who was the female? Brandy. Was it Brandy that's in this?
Jack Black. He was the Rastafarian.
Oh yeah, he's in there too. See, there's a lot of pictures. But it's funny because they have like captions, like it's like a scrapbook for kids.
Oh
but
my
this,
God.
I guess this is the young adult novelization with the script. I don't know. It's pretty weird. I don't know why I have this. So it was just sitting next to my computer, and I saw the opportunity for a great joke. Sorry for derailing that.
hey, no, it's okay. I was just sort of rambling on, but no, I mean it was a really cool idea that I really wish I could have gotten out there, And you know, I really wanted to do something for Lois Duncan and do something that was that would completely like throw a curveball to people, you know, when they heard that I would be making a direct adaptation of it. So.
Hey, didn't they do a reboot of it called like I'll Always Know or something, or is that just another sequel? Was that a direct-to-video sequel?
Yeah, they had I Know, I Still Know, and then I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer was a terrible direct-to-video sequel that had nothing to do with any of the previous films or the novel.
Hey, you think that's bad? You should try seeing the Wild Things sequel.
Oh God!
Jeez.
Oh man!
I got you one. I can one up you there, Brian. You ever see 8mm 2?
Oh my God! Did they not? Oh, come on!
I'll give you one worse. Okay, there is a movie. Okay, and the only way that you will see this is by going to IMDb to look it up and verify it. But there was a Night of the Creeps sequel.
Really?
What?
Yeah, there was a Night of the Creeps sequel. And it dealt with zombies in a barn. It was never released. I think the filmmakers actually were sued because they released the name, or they released the title under Night of the Creeps 2 and didn't have permission. It was something similar to the situation that ran into when Zombie was released as Dawn of the Dead, and something like that, they had to release it under a different name, but it was credited as a sequel, although it had nothing to do, except for there being zombies.
That was the producers of Chud 2, correct? This was Night of the Creeps 2, Leap the Creep?
Yeah, something like that.
Mike Lombardo directed a porno. It's called Chode 2, and people get confused with Chud 2. It's really just a video of me getting out of a shower and then eating a tomato.
It does have a theme song, too.
It does have a theme song.
And a kooky aerobic scene with Brutal.
See, now I'm picturing the entrance horns from when John Lovitz comes into frame in Mom and Dad Save the World.
Man, that is another good one.
Todd.
Yes.
I love that movie. Here's the thing. Back in the day when HBO was king, they would always have two movies playing back and forth. There was Mom and Dad Saves the World and Stay Tuned with John Ritter.
Yes,
Stay Tuned.
Words out of my mouth. You know what the best part about Stay Tuned was the fake commercials. Max Hell.
Yeah.
It'll blow you away.
I love that so much.
Yeah, and Jeffrey Jones was like, iconic until I found out he was a diddler. So now it's
Oh,
where that one went.
It really sucks because he was in both of those.
I guess we know why he was so obsessed with finding out what Ferris Bueller was doing in school.
Oh man.
Oh man. That's about as much bad taste as me mentioning Leonard Part 6 earlier.
Right? Yeah.
Well, the thing about Stay Tuned that works incredibly well, even to this day, is that it tackles what if there was all these channels? And before then, it was like, when you had cable, you didn't think about having over 9,000 channels. Today, it's basic, and all of the parodies, especially. I love the Wayne's World parody. That one was
Wayne's Underworld.
But my favorite one was when he goes to Three's Company, and they're like, "Where have you been?" And it
Not again. Not again.
See, that is a concept that, if done correctly, could be done again. Stay tuned.
I agree.
Stay Tuned will make a great double feature with Terror Vision.
Yes.
That kind of weird, kooky feel to him.
Do you guys remember a horror movie with John Ritter that was called Terror Tract? It was an anthology.
The cover, I don't think I've ever seen it.
It was an anthology horror movie where John Ritter played a realtor that was introducing a couple to different properties, and every time that they would go to make a deal, he'd be like, "Well, I have to tell you something about this property." And then that was the segment. The most famous one was a Monkey Shines-esque sort of segment with Bryan Cranston.
I'm sold.
Oh, wow.
You said
Bryan
Cranston.
Once you said Monkey Shines, Brian is all over that shit.
You said Monkey Shines, and Jared is absolutely right. I am incredibly hard right now for Monkey Shines.
Yeah, it's have you ever seen Shakma?
Oh,
it's about...
my God. I love Revenge Monkey movies. They're the best.
Have you ever seen Congo, Brian?
I love Congo.
Oh yeah,
that movie made me want to
change his tone. I love.
You know what it was? You know what it was for me? It was the Murders at Rue Morgue that was like that automatically drew me into like, what if there was a monkey and it was just destroying everything that was there? And the Murders at Rue Morgue was that plot. The guy wanted to get revenge on this family, so he sent down a gorilla or chimpanzee or whatever. I don't fucking remember the story, but it went through the chimney and it murdered all these people. So I mean, like, any movie with monkeys is the best, and especially
Clive Barker's story, Murders in the Rue Morgue. It's in the Books of Blood. You should check that out, Brian. New Murders in the Rue Morgue.
Really?
Yeah, I think you'd like it. It's very.
Does the monkey have a Jason X mask? Is he uber
no,
monkey?
it's uncomfortably erotic.
Uncomfortably.
It's Clive Barker, so it's a very odd story.
Oh,
Also,
get the
monkey.
Get the fuck out of here.
See, when I think of uncomfortably erotic, I think of Crash with Rosanna Arquette and James Spader.
Yeah.
Oh, the Dave Cronenberg movie.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I was about to revisit that. I just finished reading a couple books about Cronenberg. He's my favorite director.
Oh, yeah. Because, see, James Spader, to me, James Spader is one of my favorite male actors in the absolute world. And, man, can he play a creepy son of a bitch. Just look at Secretary with Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Crash is an interesting one.
Yeah. And see, people always, I wish it were easier to distinguish titles, because people always get that confused with the ludicrous Sandra Bullock, Brendan Fraser movie.
Yeah, people, I'm like, oh, I just got Crashed. I'm like, yeah, the NC-17 version. They're like, Crash was NC-17. I'm like, oh, not the feel-good drama. I'm talking about the one where they fuck cars. And they're like, oh, God.
Yeah. See, I worked at a movie theater when Crash first came out, and nobody thought, like, our theater owners thought that it was going to do all of nothing. They thought that it was going to stay in the theater for a couple weeks and that it was going to leave. And then as soon as the word of mouth got out, it was just insane.
Well, Sandra Bullock could have been better. I mean,
oh man, it's one of my favorite ensemble dramas. But this is a horror show. Let's not talking about that bullshit.
No.
Actually,
I think Crash was one of the movies that I watched a lot during my preteen years behind closed doors. It was just that good of a movie.
It makes sense. The monkey revenge wheelchair fetish that you've got going on, the leg braces, Crash, and all that.
Yeah.
Now, if only you had a slew of monkeys in wheelchairs with guns coming after, that would be like your ideal movie. Ooh, ape NATO. There you go.
Like, could you imagine how different the plot would be in 8mm if Nicolas Cage was hired to go find a monkey?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I had a joke lined up and I lost it. I can't even. Millimeter. That movie pissed me off so badly.
What's the first one?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's so fucking Hollywood. Like, that movie is screaming to be directed by David Fincher, and it's so obvious what they're trying to do, and it just did not work at all.
Listen, you're just upset because this was Joel Schumacher's first movie he directed without showing bat nipples, okay?
it just, oh, dude, the soundtrack was like Indian Bazaar music and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then they dance around everything. It's like it's like watching an episode of CSI that's trying really hard to be shocking. And it did not work. And Nick Cage was just embarrassing in that movie. Like,
No, he
Do
wasn't.
you know what a terrible movie is that I've seen get a lot of attention lately that I just don't know why? And I may be shunned for this, but Adam Green's Digging Up the Marrow.
there was night found footage.
What's that?
It was
Yes.
just found footage Nightbreed. I was like, what the hell?
But it was all fake. I mean, spoilers, but it was all fake. It was all bullshit. I was like, I almost threw my television when I watched that because I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, I hate movies that do that have the Newhart ending. Oh, everything was a dream, or everything wasn't what it seemed that you just saw for an hour and a half. It's a very bad cop out for an ending. It's one of those that like. Can you really find no other ending than to say that the whole thing didn't exist?
Didn't it end with what's his face from Twin Peaks in his underwear in a cage though?
What's his name? Ray Wise.
Wasn't it actually the case though? Wasn't that a thing? I can't remember. It's been a while. Was it?
Because I thought it was all fake and that it was people in like costumes and shit.
See, I don't know. I have to rewatch it. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not going to rewatch it, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I can tell us the answer. But yes.
Yeah. What about Ray Wise in the cage?
He had like a spoon. He kept feeding something pudding or some shit. I can't remember.
Yeah. Do you know what's a really good Ray Wise movie that's underrated? And I can never remember the title. But there's a movie that actually it might be called Roadside. It's him and Lin Shaye. And they are quite literally broken down on the side of a road.
I love that movie. Yeah. You're talking about Dead End. Dead End, yes. Yeah, that movie's great.
Never even heard of it. I'll have to check it out.
Ray Wise is in fucking everything these days.
Yeah, dude, him and Eric's $1 billion movie.
Oh.
But hey, you know what? He's working. It's like, I always tell people, because I have a couple friends of mine that just finished working with Tara Reid on Bus Party to Hell, and they're working with her on their next movie, Art of the Dead, with her. And people are like, "Oh, Tara Reid," but you know what? She's working steady. She made a whole franchise of movies that she was in every one, and I mean, she's still going.
What franchise? What's it called?
Sharknado.
Oh, I never actually. I only saw part of the first one. I know she was in all of those.
Yeah, she was in all of the Sharknadoes, and I mean, it's like Eric Roberts to me. You can't put down. I'm a very big person for dark horse actors, people that aren't utilized a lot.
Oh yeah, all the power to him for keeping working. I mean, I think that Tara Reid's career exploded after Uber Ball's Alone in the Dark. I mean, talk about Oscar snubs.
Yeah, but
I'm glad they're getting work. That's always nice to see.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's people like I'm a big supporter of people like Corey Feldman, David Faustino, people that from some of their roles are really strong, but aren't given the roles that they should. They're given these goofy, poorly written roles and never given the opportunity to shine. And so I like to try and give people that aren't necessarily given opportunities in different ways to be given those.
So to get back to the Jason Goes to Hell documentary, so when are you guys are not in production on that yet, are you?
No, we are targeting going into production towards the third quarter, fourth quarter of this year, over in Southern California, and then we're hoping to get something out, if not by the very end of the year, by the very beginning of next year.
So can you talk a little bit about how do you approach doing a documentary about something like that, like what do you do? Are you out shooting every day? Is it mostly just trying to find people, or is that all pre-production work? Like what does a day-to-day on a documentary shoot like this go?
Well, right now it's really the process of gathering all of the cast and crew from the 1993 film, finding out who's interested in doing the documentary, who wants to contribute. It's going out and finding screen use stuff from the movie. It's going and finding out stuff like lobby cards from the theaters and old posters and anything and everything that the fans want to contribute for this thing. It's a showcase. It's about, figuring out really, who's going to be the bread and butter of this thing. And right now, although I can't name names, we have already a dozen people from the original cast and crew confirmed, with an expected dozen to 13 more people. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be announcing the first chunk of Jason Goes to Hell alumni that are going to be joining the documentary. And right now, it's really that. It's really getting everybody amped up and involved, and finding out what the fans want to be asked. I very much want the fans to know that I plan on asking direct questions from you guys. I want go onto the Facebook page and, tell us the questions that you want to be, have the answers to, anything and everything you want, no matter how negative, no matter how positive. I will try as much as I can within my power or within the power of the cast and crew to get it answered. I want to make this as much of a fan-involved experience as possible, because really this is built on the fans. It's funny that you said the philosophy that you use for your radio show, because it's the same thing that I use. I make things for the fans, by the fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jason Goes to Hell is that kind of movie where it's, there's the numbers kind of outweigh the positives, where it's like, hey, we're doing a documentary on Jason Goes to Hell, and you probably have 9 out of 10 people in the room going, fuck that movie. And then there's that one guy who's like, I really like that movie though. Can I say that? So
and that's the great thing about it. Jason is a bona fide pop culture icon. He's already an established brand. My goals for this documentary I have 4 of them. Number 1, it's to make a teaching tool for young filmmakers. It's you as a young filmmaker, or you as a consumer, or you as a potential filmmaker, to be able to find out why Jason Goes to Hell came out the way it did, good or bad, in your perception. The second way is the second goal that I have is to make something for the fans. The third goal is to make something for the amazing cast and crew that busted their ass on this thing. And then the fourth goal is to eventually intrigue interest in this rumored unrated Blu-ray or director's cut that Adam wants to get out and that the fans want. I'm hoping that by invoking interest in this thing, that it'll make the powers that be want to put this thing out, maybe through Scream Factory or, something like that. And then, of course, the last goal is hopefully to re-peak interest in the franchise itself, so that hopefully Jason isn't dead and buried.
So, quick question for you. I know that, we tend to agree that Jason Goes to Hell is pretty much its own movie and its own pretty much its own standalone title.
Right.
Being New Line and everything. Do you believe that Jason Goes to Hell is connected to Evil Dead?
No. I do. Actually, I'm going to say I do and I don't. As we learn more and more, especially in this film age, that multiple movies seem to exist within the same universe as other movies. Sometimes we don't even know it. Sometimes it is the smallest, minute part of it that is that connection. But maybe there are other reasons. And all I can say is that with the documentary, you'll really have to stay tuned. Because it's one of those really highly debated upon topics that Adam is constantly asked about, and is one of the and it's one of the most recent things, one of the most recent conversation starters that happened right before the announcement of the documentary. So we're going to try and address it as best as we possibly can to rectify, or to clarify rather, for the fans. And we're gonna try our best.
I feel personally that it was just a fun little nod to another horror movie, because if you want to get technical, that would also mean Jason Goes to Hell is Creepshow 3 because of the Arctic Expedition crate from the crate that's also in the Voorhees house, inexplicably.
Right.
So I think it's just a fun nod. I think people are really stretched too much to make these fan theories, especially a franchise that is completely devoid of any logic.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard.
It's pretty evident. And I posted something earlier today that I had grabbed from a friend of mine, and it was simply a meme that has Indiana Jones, and it says, "What if Han Solo's subconscious is what you're seeing in the Indiana Jones franchise?" And people went nuts over the speculation over this thing, just the mere suggestion. And that's really all it takes, is the mere suggestion that a movie is connected to one another.
And it's kind of hard to deny those fan, reactions when you see Freddy's glove pull down the mask at the end of the movie. Is like, how can we discount all these other things?
Much more overt thing, because that was obviously setting up the sequel, or Freddy vs. Jason.
Right.
That's like saying that
obviously
Dolls is actually a prequel to William Friedkin's Sorcerer.
Yeah, and it's the same thing.
Sorcerer, really?
Who recalls the first opening 10 minutes to Bride of Chucky? Bride of Chucky, when they're in the police station and he goes to collect the evidence locker, and in it you see a Freddy glove, you see a Michael Myers mask, and you see a hockey mask. Now, although it is not a Scream Jason mask, and obviously they're generic offshoots of them, one could argue by the rationale of the Necronomicon and Jason Goes to Hell and several other things in other movies that, well, doesn't that mean that Chucky exists in the same universe as Michael and Jason and Freddy? It's really, it doesn't take a lot.
Most importantly, when Jason goes into the mortician's body in the beginning of the movie, and then travels out and kills security guard Kane Hodder and the other guard. Let's talk about how the Action News footage just has no problem with showing gore on family TV, and then displaying the one morgue worker. Instead of showing like a photograph of him, it's showing actual footage of him sitting in the morgue, looking exactly the way he did before he died. Let's talk about that continuity for a second.
Well, it's also like if you look at the news footage from Predator 2 or from RoboCop, when they're showing the test footage in RoboCop, when they show the test footage of the robot, and then in Predator 2, when they're showing the riot violence. It's graphic violence shown on there. I don't know. There's. What about Jason coming out of Diana as a fully clothed man? There are things that, Do you know? Okay, here's an interesting story that I will tell you because I don't have a problem saying it, and this is directly out of Adam's mouth. Do you know the hate mail that he received from just the matter of the Voorhees name being misspelled on the mailbox at the Voorhees house? Do you know that he received death threats to his mother because of it?
Wow.
Get out of here. Are you fucking serious? That is crazy.
Yeah.
As
That's hardcore.
threats himself from crazed fans, it does not take much.
Yes.
You did not put that other O in there?
Oh, man. You know, it's just, I mean, it's not one thing, it's another. You know, people will always have something to say.
Yeah, you can't please everybody.
I'll just address the elephant in the room then.
Just like with the new Halloween. Let's talk about the new Halloween for a second.
Yes,
okay.
please.
Let's do it.
With the new poster. You know, as soon as that poster came out, you had a dozen, you know, you had 12 dozen fanboys. Oh my God, it looks so much like the Rob Zombie mask. Oh, why is it so aged? Well, gee, it's the same mask, aged 40 years. Maybe that is what an aged mask looked like, you know?
And it probably smells like shit.
Yeah.
No, but his mask like that in Halloween 20 years later.
Yeah. It's just, we see, this was an interesting point that I brought up the other day. We know too much as audience, as fans, and as consumers about the movie making process. We know we are given way too deep of a glimpse sometimes when some things should just be left up to the imagination, especially with bigger projects. I can understand with indie projects the need to constantly communicate with your fan base. But with an established brand like Halloween, I'm sorry, the more it's as if, have you ever known somebody that when they're drunk, that you just, every word that comes out of their mouth is problematic. So it's best just to keep them shut up. It's one of those things that Blumhouse is having the problem with Halloween. Why do you need the owner of the company to come out and say it's an amazing movie? Why do you need the star of the movie to come out and say it's an amazing movie? Way before a trailer is released, to me, it doesn't show confidence. This whole mess with Horror Freak News and with Joshua Milliken and the screening and whether it happened or whether it didn't happen. Look, here's the thing. I firmly believe a screening happened. I firmly believe whoever screwed up and leaked that and leaked the non-disclosure agreement is going to get theirs. I firmly believe it. They are deader than a doornail. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is there's many screenings that are done, especially with a project like this from beginning to end.
Yeah, they got
groups. Wouldn't you, as a consumer, as a fan, want them to take as much time and consideration on this as opposed to shipping it out and speeding it out to the fans?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just doesn't, we don't want to see a carbon copy Halloween. That's obviously why they're taking their time.
But they do, which is very evident with why Jason Goes to Hell got shit on so much. Because they want another Friday the 13th clone because they want comfortable, they want familiar. People don't want something that's new when you mess with their precious franchise.
That's a good point.
They feel like
and that's why you need to and see, that's where people go wrong. They veer off too far off the beaten trail. You need to have the veins and the blood and the soul of that original. And you need to slowly expand upon and build upon those things that made it great, instead of trying to change and trying to make new versions of existing things. Yeah. With Jason, Okay, if you had a Jason movie done in the plot, if you had a Jason movie written like a Friday the 13th film, kids go out to a cabin, get hacked up one by one. There's a final confrontation where Jason may or may not come back. That works. If you do it with amazing practical effects, if you do it with good cinematography, if you put some good money behind it, have some good actors behind it, that as a concept can still work. Mm-hmm. But people want to take the core concept and mess with it. That's why things like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake didn't work. One of the things that was best about the original was the relatable people. And you had these emo kids in the remake that were about as entertaining as watching Carrot Top on stage. And it just didn't work. It was a dark and foreboding and ugly and dirty and watery movie. And that is not what Nightmare on Elm Street was. Nightmare on Elm Street had fun to it. It had a darkness, it had that suspense, but it had a funness to it, like Fright Night. Why, on God's green earth, do you need to make a CGI vampire face for a human? Why could they have not put practical makeup on Colin Farrell? The numerous things like that tear apart these original core concepts. The Fog, The Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man. Hold on, Nicolas Cage was a one-man show in that movie.
Oh God! The only entertaining part of that movie was his fight with Berta from 2.5 Men.
Everything about Nicolas Cage in that movie, from punching a bear in the face or a person in costume a bear in the face, asking questions about how a doll got burned to the bees. That movie was
God
as hell. I mean, like 80% of the movie was garbage, but the 20% of Nicolas Cage being full-on Nicolas Cage is the best thing about that movie. So.
Well, then, maybe we should have put Tom Welling in that one and had you listen to him for 90 minutes, okay?
Well, so
I do agree with the Fog.
Pose this, though. What you're saying is that those concepts can still work with, if you did the same, basically the core of those movies. Why do we need new ones? They already exist. Why make something that's that similar again? Why don't we tread new ground?
See, here's the thing. Being a fan and being in the industry and being a filmmaker, I now know the business side of things as opposed to, I know it's just about as much as when a politician goes into office and has all these hopes and dreams and promises of what he wants to do or she wants to do, and then gets into office and truthfully is only able to execute 50% of those because of the limitations that person has. And it's really about that when it comes down to it. When you look at the when you look at the business side of things, it's a great concept, and it's a profitable concept. You take a brand that made a lot of money back in X year, and say that if it made that amount of money and it still has the following that it has, then common sense says that it will make a good amount of money again. I understand the reasoning and the popularity behind remakes and reboots and sequels and prequels and all these new terminologies. But, and I think that the industry needs that in a way, but it's just there has to be more careful consideration. Mm-hmm. When something is billed as being connected to another brand. One of the most recent cases of this is Chopping Mall and its remake. I believe it's Robert Greenhall who is doing a remake of Chopping Mall. And but it has absolutely nothing to do with killer robots in a mall. It has to do with mannequins that may or may not have the souls of the descendants of slaves from the property in which the mall was built upon, and then these mannequins are going around killing people.
What? They should just call it Mannequin 3 and then reboot into the mix.
Well, how can you top on the move?
Oh my God, Mannequin 2.
Now, if I was going to do a Chopping Mall remake, I would do it like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I would make it that an automated system is attacking people that are trapped in a mall. That's, Final Destination meets Chopping Mall.
But that like multiple different types of things, not just
exactly. Not just security robots, but utilize all various forms of technology to just murk these people.
Yeah.
So but Ghost in the Machine reboot.
Yes. There you go.
I understand what you're saying. Like from the business side, of course, that's why they keep making these movies, because they're profitable, because they have an established fan base. But my point is,
cash cows have teats. You got to milk them.
Well, but my point is, with the way that with all the fan rage that goes into this, that the mask looks different on the poster or something like that. These are the same people that completely ignore when John Carpenter was asked about the remake, and he said, a funny thing happens whenever a new sequel comes out, a check appears in my hand. And I don't care. Like, this is the man that created the franchise, clearly does not give a fuck. He just wants to make money, which is totally fine.
Nope. I mean,
people take it so personally then, if it's just it's not a film series, it's a product.
Yeah.
And that's really sad, because there are 1,000 better movies that are out there that people refuse to watch because they want to see the same fucking thing that came out 25 years ago. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's so frustrating.
So I believe, and I completely agree with you. And that's why I threw such a conniption fit when I heard people announce, "Oh, John Carpenter's executive producing the new Halloween. He's composing the new Halloween. He's involved in it. This is his brainchild." No, okay, you heard out of context interviews from out of context people. The truth is that John Carpenter said, and only said, that he would only involve himself and put his name on this product if he believed, after seeing the original cut of it, that it was satisfactory for him to put his name to. And only then would he agree to sign the contract to be an executive producer and to compose the movie. Now, it
depends on how many zeros are on his paycheck then.
Well, yeah.
There is that.
But I mean, that was also, this is also, that's also out of, I believe that was an out of context statement that was taken from an individual was that also the part of the story that was broken on Horror Freak News that was disputed a few months back?
I have no idea. I mean, this interview was from a while back. I mean, even if it's disputed online, that's the truth behind all of these film franchises is. And no one can think otherwise realistically, because that's why they were made. I mean, that's why there's the fight for Friday the 13th rights, because both sides want money. That's why they don't.
I want to pose a question since Mike's talking about that. I was just going to say I want to pose a question since Mike's talking about the legality rights to Friday the 13th franchise. So this is for anybody. Like, hypothetically speaking, in October, Halloween comes out and Blumhouse fucking rocks fucking ass. How quickly do you see the rights getting figured out in the legal system and we see a new Friday the 13th movie?
Well, see, here's the thing. It's going to be more, because for those who are listening, or for those who may not know, this is a condensed version of what's going on. So you have Sean Cunningham and Victor Miller. Victor Miller, who wrote the film, Sean Cunningham, who directed and produced the film.
Yep.
You have Victor Miller, who is claiming that he came up with the idea for Friday the 13th, and that he came up with the idea for the story, and that he was supposed to be adequately promised story rights in return for his services. Then you have Sean Cunningham, who claims that Victor Miller did not come up with the original material, that rather Sean Cunningham came up with the original material, and Victor Miller was what was known in the industry as a writer for hire. That he was simply hired to adapt his idea into the screenplay as a one-off deal. And Miller is exercising a clause in his contract which states after a number of years that he can essentially vie for the rights. The thing about it is that, like I said earlier, unless the fight stops and one side agrees to bow down, then the rights are going to be in shambles. It's going to take either Warner Brothers and New Line or Paramount to take them over. Because the way it sits right now, like I said, you're either going to get a Friday the 13th movie that is not allowed to use the Jason Voorhees character or likeness or name, or you're going to get a Jason movie that is not able to acknowledge the previous films at all. Not Jason Goes to Hell, not Jason X, not Freddy versus Jason.
It
nothing
wouldn't
that
even be called a Friday the 13th movie then. If
they can't reference the previous sequels, how will they continue the rich plot?
Still waiting. I am still waiting for the quirky comedy remake of They Live starring The Rock and Kevin Hart. Okay.
No, but
I mean, to answer your question, it's just okay. When Blumhouse, even if Blumhouse hits it out of the park with Halloween, number one, it is still, you know as well as I do. Even if Halloween is amazing, you're still going to have people that hate it just for the simple fact of it being what it is. And that's what I said. I said the other week when all this mess was going on with the screening, that, you know what, we're really going to ruin it for ourselves. That it's going to come time for Halloween to come out, and we're going to be so butthurt, and we're going to be so nervous and agitated over the prospect of what Halloween is going to be that nobody is going to be able to go into the theater and enjoy it. And that's really tragic. But regardless of how Halloween does, you know, as much as Jason Blum, who I think it was on the Shockwaves podcast, when he said that he would want to do Friday the 13th if he ever had the opportunity, a lot of people are taking it a lot more seriously than it actually is. I don't think Blumhouse is vying for the rights. I don't even think they're in the market for the rights. But I think, like I said, the best case scenario is they should dissolve the rights. They should both bow out and put the rights on the open market.
See, but so if they're arguing about who had the story credit and all that, what basically it comes down to is which one of them saw Halloween first and decided to rip it off. Right? I mean, like, why are they so, like, seriously? Like, I mean, I know I'm really shitting on Friday the 13th right now, but I mean, I love the movies.
Sean Cunningham's even said, like, he saw Halloween and he wanted to make the same thing.
It's like, yeah, we can copy this. And with John Carpenter being the fucking producer of the new one, it's like, no, put the guy in the rubber mask over there. And you're like, brilliant. It's like, the fuck? Like, these are paint-by-numbers movies. It's not, you don't need artistry to make one of these movies. I don't get it. Like, why are people so fucking precious about this shit? Like,
I disagree with the fact that you don't need artistry in a way. Because, a lot of people had told me, you know, through the various financial parts of this Safe Place, through the casting process and through various other aspects, you know, they were like, oh, well, Nick, you know, if actors leave or if this actor doesn't do this, well, it's okay because they're actors, you know, and this is okay because it's just sort of how it is. But it's only how it is, and it's only how it's been because of how it's been. And what I mean by that is that the only reason that majority of slashers that are out there are done with poor actors, poor writing, shoddy effects, and a clusterfuck of a story, most of those are not given time and dedication and admiration and finesse. They are pushed out, rushed out, and not really paying attention to what the fans like. and what the fans are saying, because it's a slasher movie. People are going to watch it regardless because people love to see people get chopped up. But you do have to have artistry for it. You do have to, if there was somebody who I had creatively involved early on in the process of Safe Place, and when it came time, because originally what not a lot of people know is Safe Place started out as a $20,000 budgeted movie and is now $250,000. And the reason is that it is expanded and grown so much into such a bigger and more elaborate animal. But one of my previous creative team members thought that we could just go out and shoot Safe Place, that we could go out with no money. And that is not the first person that has told me that. They said, well, why can't you just go out and shoot this thing? Because I don't want to. The fans don't deserve it. The people that are buying the product don't deserve it. I don't want to make a movie to make a movie and push it out. I want to make a movie because I want to make something meaningful. I'm not going to give you something that I'm not going to put my 200% into, and that I make sure that the other people that are involved don't put their 200% into.
Well, absolutely, and that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that you clearly are a filmmaker who cares about the artistry. You're trying to elevate the slasher tropes and make them unique and different. You're doing something.
Yeah.
My thing is that the franchises that were pre-existing, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, if you do that, then people bitch, because just like Jason Goes to Hell was different, because we already saw him do it 8 fucking times. Why do we need to see a 9th time? But that's what everybody wanted, and that's what's so damn aggravating about this, is if you try something new, you get fucking crucified. And that's ridiculous. Because those people are just churning out those movies, and the original creators don't care about them at all.
From what I gathered about Jason Goes to Hell is that Sean Cunningham's son went to school with Adam Marcus. That's how Adam Marcus got hired. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Oh wait,
I believe now. Okay, I believe so. Now, don't quote me on it.
All right.
Because if I remember correctly, when they originally were in the development process for Jason Goes to Hell, they had several people attached to direct at one point or another, and they just couldn't find anybody. And then they were at a deadline where they had to have somebody take over the reins, and that's when Adam stepped up.
Got you. So now, from what we were saying earlier, about Jason Goes to Hell, this guy, fresh out of film school, comes along. Sean Cunningham is the big guy behind this project. He is the executive producer. He is running Jason Goes to Hell. Anything that is said and done is from Sean Cunningham. This is Sean Cunningham's stamp on a movie that is running out of time and needs to get out there. And piggybacking off what Mike said, I mean, you have people who are complaining because it doesn't follow the same formula that the other 8 movies gave us. It's its own movie if you think about it. And, I think that this movie has so much out there that has never been talked about before. And we may have seen this documentary on Crystal Lake Memories, right, about Jason Goes to Hell. But we don't have an in-depth story which you are going to present to us with your documentary, The Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees. And I think it's so important for fans out there who do not like Jason Goes to Hell, like you were saying before, who do not but I think it's more important for the fans who absolutely hate this movie and are just despise it in every way to read up about it. And if they are huge fans of filmmaking, this is definitely
a little deeper.
Yeah, this is definitely there for them to watch. If they choose not to watch it, then pity on them. This is available. This is here for them. And those who are watching, this documentary is extremely important. because it shows you what happens. Like I said before, you have a new filmmaker coming out with a big name attached to the project saying, hey, I'm going to hire you as a director. Don't fuck up. And you had a movie that got shit canned all over the place, came out with the unrated cut, which showed so much gore and extended boobies and all that stuff, which is always a good thing, and a shaving scene, which Mike Lombardo loves. So, yeah, like I'm saying, those who are watching right now, please follow Nicholas Hunt and get on it, because this documentary, especially with all the footage that you're talking about, Nick, like the footage that has never been seen before, who knows? Jason Goes to Hell could have been a completely different movie, especially with the limited time that Adam Marcus was given.
Let me put it this way, guys. I have over 90 minutes of never before seen footage.
That is crazy.
90.
That is like the Cabal cut of Jason Goes to Hell. That is insane. But no, I mean, I am looking forward to it. And you know what's funny? When I was younger, and I didn't get into the Friday the 13th series until I was an adult, and it was by choice, because I watched other obscure movies. I had to go through Full Moon movies. I had to go through Troma movies. I had to go through Vestron movies. I had to go through like every movie under the sun before I said, fuck it, I'm going to settle down and I'm going to watch all the Friday the 13th movies. And the first time I watched them, I thought they all sucked. As an adult, I thought they all sucked. I hated the first one. To this day, I don't really care for the first one. It happened. It's a movie. It doesn't, there's no reason for it to be considered the first Friday the 13th. I think that belongs to part 2. Now, that being said, watching back on it and being an adult and not being there at the time when Jason Goes to Hell came out in 1993, I wasn't the kind of person that says, oh man, I grew up with loving these movies. What the fuck was this shit? And I came in as a retrospective as an adult, and I watched all of them in order, and I watched Jason Goes to Hell, I watched Jason X, and they all looked the same to me. Not like visually, but I mean, like, you know what I mean, with like just how they're delivered. But Jason Goes to Hell was the only one that stood out as its own movie. It's like The Hidden meets fucking, I don't know, the Friday the 13th series. Let's say that. It's got a different concept, and I definitely want to hear more about it. 90 minutes? Holy shit. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, and that was given over by the amazing Robert Kurtzman, who has been helping us out a lot, who is just such a great guy. Nice dude. Oh yeah, him and his wife have been just tremendous. Because we have them working in the background with us. We have Peter Brack, who worked on Crystal Lake Memories. He actually wrote Crystal Lake Memories, the book, as well as he contributed most of the material for the documentary itself. And then we have Sean Richards, who's a big documentary guy. And then we have Nathan Barker, who runs the Friday the 13th franchise site, as well as the Friday the 13th franchise podcasts. He's been helping us out a lot. And so it's just, there's so many people all over the place that are really just doing so many cool things for this. I couldn't do it alone. I could not get all of this stuff, because I couldn't get all this stuff alone.
Now I'm really excited to see it. I absolutely adore Jason Goes to Hell, and same with Jason X. I love that movie too. It's wonderful. But also to wrap up all the stuff about the old franchise shit, like or the rights and everything. I honestly want to see Vince DeSanti do the sequel to Friday the 13th, because Never Hike Alone was, again, it was like an original take on the franchise. It still had the core of the franchise, but it did something interesting with it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell that movie is oozing with affection for those films, and I think he's the perfect person to do it, because it's not a product to him. It's a film. Just like you were saying with A Safe Place. Like, as someone who actually gives a shit, that's the way to do it, and that would be wonderful. So hopefully, hopefully something cool happens. If not, then let Jason stay buried. We already have him 11 times. We don't need him a 12th.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with everybody that, it's sort of sad in a way when people can't give up. One of the things I've seen over the past week is petition after petition after petition to get Ash versus the Evil Dead resurrected over at another network or another service. And you know what? I hate to say it, guys, but Bruce Campbell doesn't want to do it. He's being nice. He's being very nice to everybody in saying that he's retired from those roles, including Elvis from Bubba Hotep 2. But, he's very upset. He knows that it was piracy that killed the show in a huge part. I will not say it solely killed the show, but he knows that piracy was a huge part of the show dying. And he's visibly upset about that. I know from people close to him that he was very upset about that, and he doesn't want these petitions. It's the same thing with Robert Englund. Leave the man alone. Stop trying to convince the man to play Freddy, because it's just, there has to be a point to where we need to realize that some of the things that we strive to be and that we dream to be accomplished so much are just not going to happen.
That's what Wes Craven's New Nightmare was about. It was Wes Craven finally saying, okay, I'll give you another fucking Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and it's about how I fucking hate making Nightmare on Elm Street movies and how it took over my career and haunted everyone involved.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, but people don't want to hear that. And it's like, artists like to do different things too.
But it's the scariest Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant movie. It really is. It was a great deconstruction of fandom and stuff, and and again, when it came out, everyone shit on it. They're like, what the fuck is this? This is different. And I was like, this is what's slapping you across the face, telling you to shut the hell up. That's what this movie is.
It's just like Doug Bradley is never going to play Pinhead. It's we are only going to get our true version of Pinhead, which won't be Doug Bradley. Okay, yes, Doug Bradley was an amazing Pinhead, but many people realize we've never gotten the direct version of the Hellbound Heart that Clive Barker wanted. Okay, we have never seen anything close to what Clive Barker actually wanted.
Hellbound Heart and the original Hellraiser are pretty damn close. There's some differences, but for the most part, he wrote the book based on the screenplay.
Right.
They're pretty similar, but they should have, again, with all these franchises, quit while you're behind. They should have let it go instead of taking unrelated scripts and shoehorning the character into them to keep the franchise alive. It's pointless.
Because I'll tell you this, I recently became acquainted with Paul Taylor, who's playing the new Pinhead in the new one, Revelations, or whatever it's called.
Judgment.
Judgment, yeah. And he was on social media the other day, just like almost at his wit's end, depressed about the feedback and the hate and the violent speech and all this madness that he's getting over being Pinhead. He says that it's almost encouraged him to quit acting early on, and that's pretty sad. That we literally cannot let go of the fact that somebody is never going to play somebody again, that we are so deep-seated that we will take it out on this individual that we've never met before, never seen before. It just boggles me.
It's the sense of entitlement that the horror fandom has. Like, fandom is a curse. I'm sorry, but it really is.
Oh, yeah. You're not going to, I could tell you stories all day about some of the actors, and I'm talking about legitimized genre actors and franchise actors that I've talked to that are just so unbelievably full of themselves and just so distant from what the fans want. I recently talked to an actor, I'm not going to say who, from the Child's Play franchise. And this person I thought was a very nice person. I heard nothing but great things about them. We became acquainted on social media. And I had told the person, hey, if we ever get a chance to work together, And this wasn't just like a one-time thing, that you were doing, returning to acting, then, I would really love to work with you. And the person's like, what do you mean a one-time thing? I never quit acting.
I know who you're talking about.
And this person blew up on me. Just like, I don't, you should probably do some checking before you talk to a person, and shouldn't mention their past and the fact that they don't work that much. Am I supposed to? Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, you're fine. This person had. I did an event with this person who was there that you're speaking of. I won't specify he or she. But I was at an event with this person, and this person said things similar to what you were saying. So go on.
Yeah, and it was just like I'm like, I didn't know that when I say hello to a person or introduce myself, that I automatically have to be looking at their IMDb prior. Mm-hmm. There's people that I have courted. There's some people that now that we're into the process and we have our full cast, I can talk about some of the people. I had talked originally. Michael Madsen was going to have a role in Safe Place, of all people, and he is one of the most nice, genuine individuals I've ever met. He is very blunt and very honest. He doesn't have any managers, doesn't have any agents, and doesn't care for them. We talked all about his family and the fact that his son was over in the military and that he couldn't spend the holidays with him, and stuff like that is great, and then there's people that you would never, at one point I had spoken about the same role with Daniel Baldwin. And Daniel is, despite some of the personal issues that he's had very publicly, I saw past that and, really wanted to utilize his strengths. And, but all those people were extremely humble and extremely genuine and nice. But there's been a lot of people, and I will tell you this, there has been more than one person from the Child's Play franchise that is a little big for their britches.
Talking about the person who got his eyes poked out in Child's Play 2 in the factory, right?
I don't even know who that is.
All right. So Nick, we're going to take these last couple of minutes to shamelessly promote yourself. Anything that you have going on, where can we follow you? Where can the people in the audience know where you live, send their hate mail to for the Jade? No, I'm kidding. Yeah. But definitely, where can we follow you with your projects and, what else is going on?
You can follow Safe Place at facebook.com/SafePlaceTheMovie. And on the page, you can find links to the trailer, to dozens upon dozens of articles about the movie, podcast interviews, pretty much anything and everything you can find. For the Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees, the link is a very complicated link. So you simply have to go to the search bar and search the Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees. And you will find the page. Make sure to give it a like, and make sure to stay tuned over the next week or so. We're going to be having some massive announcements about the Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees, and really hope to get some really super stuff out to the fans, and even get more fan interaction. We want you guys involved as much as humanly possible in this thing. And besides that, you can just continue to follow me personally on social media, and stay tuned.
All right, awesome. All right, well, everyone, thank you for joining us. You can follow me on Facebook at Brian Enright, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Horror Jew. And we have a lot more announcements coming up for you. Hang out with us here at THS Lives. And Jared, where can we find you, man?
You guys can follow me on Facebook at Jared Letourneau, or on the Twitterverse at @zombie_survivor. Zombie has no E, like the Fulci, Dawn of the Dead. Anyways, thanks for watching tonight, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight, Nick. It was fun talking with you.
Absolutely, love to do it again once the movies come out, maybe.
Hell yeah, looking forward to it. Back to you, Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Mike Lombardo. Where can we find you?
We can find me at realsplatter.com. That's real with 2 E's, just like Jared's showing on there. Facebook.com/realsplatter. And you can see me in person if you want to punch me for talking so much shit on Halloween and Friday the 13th. Crimson Screen Horror Film Festival, May 25th through the 28th in South Carolina, which I don't know if you guys saw, we just got nominated for Best Screenplay, Best Director, Feature, and Best Special Effects for I'm Dreaming for White Doomsday.
Sweet.
Not to brag or anything, but anyway, back to you, Brian.
All right, thank you very much. And Ray, here's a picture of the skull. Thank you, Ray Merrick, president of the Horror Syndicate, for joining us.
We love you, Ray.
We love you, Ray. Those who are watching tonight, thank you for joining us. I hope that you're all excited for the Dark Heart of Jason Voorhees as much as we are. And stay tuned for more announcements. Everyone have a great night. Be safe. And yeah, enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.